welcome to our deep dive today.
Yeah.
And today we're going behind the scenes of the legal world,
Behind the curtain.
to explore this thing called a bench book.
Yeah.
You can think of it like a judge's secret playbook,
It is.
outlining procedures and little standards that they should be following in court.
Yes.
But what's fascinating is you can use these bench books too
Absolutely.
to level the playing field and even gain an advantage.
100%.
So we're going to be looking at actual bench books,
Yes.
including the U.S. District Court Judge's bench book and the military judge's JAG bench book.
Yes.
They're incredible resources packed with specific guidelines. Before we get into the nitty-gritty,
Yeah.
can you explain exactly what bench books are? I mean, what kind of information is actually in them?
Essentially, bench books are comprehensive guides designed to help judges navigate the complexities of legal proceedings.
Okay. They cover a wide range of topics, from basic procedural rules
Okay.
to complex legal issues.
So they're not laws themselves,
Right.
but they explain how the law should be applied
Exactly.
in different situations.
Yeah. Think of it like a detailed instruction manual
Okay.
for how to run a courtroom fairly consistently.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, why should someone who's not a judge
Right.
care about these bench books?
Understanding them can be incredibly empowering,
Okay.
especially for those who are representing themselves in court,
Okay.
what we call pro se litigants.
Got it.
Bench books can demystify court procedures, making the process less intimidating
Okay.
and helping ensure the judge is following the rules.
So it's like knowing the magician's secrets.
Kinda?
You can anticipate the judge's next move
That's right.
and make sure they aren't cutting corners
Exactly.
or overlooking something important.
That's the whole point.
You can use the bench books
To hold judges accountable to their own playbook.
to their
own playbook.
It's all about transparency
Yes,
and fairness.
exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's dive into some specifics.
Okay.
I know you mentioned the U.S. District Court Judge's bench book.
Yes.
What kind of insights can someone find in that one?
Well, for instance, it has an entire section dedicated to
Accepting guilty pleas.
Okay.
It lays out step by step exactly what a judge is supposed to do, from confirming the defendant understands the charges to ensuring the plea is voluntary.
So someone facing criminal charges
Yeah.
could actually use this bench book to make sure their rights are being protected during the plea process.
Absolutely. And it's not just about guilty pleas.
Okay.
This bench book also covers things
Like jury selection, handling witnesses,
Okay.
and even specific instructions for the jury.
Wow. It's remarkably comprehensive.
So this is
Really starting to sound like a secret weapon for anyone navigating the legal system.
It is.
You mentioned another one earlier. The military.
Judge's JAG bench book. Yes.
What's unique about that one?
This bench book is specifically tailored
Okay.
to the unique world of court-martial proceedings.
Got it.
It covers everything from advising service members on their sentencing rights.
Okay.
to navigating pretrial agreements.
Wow.
It's a crucial resource for anyone involved in the
Military justice system.
I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah.
It seems like these bench books provide this incredible level of detail.
Yes. And step-by-step guidance. That's right.
Is the goal to make sure everyone in the courtroom is on the same page?
Yeah.
And that procedures are standardized.
That's a big part of it. Bench books aim to standardize procedures and minimize the potential for errors or bias.
Okay.
This helps ensure consistency and fairness across different cases and different judges.
This is already so insightful.
Good.
So it's not just about knowing your rights,
Right.
but understanding the exact procedures the court is supposed to follow.
Yeah.
That seems like an incredible advantage for anyone, especially if they're representing themselves.
Exactly. It's like having a legal expert whispering in your ear throughout the entire process.
You mentioned earlier that bench books can also help level the playing field
Yes.
for pro se litigants.
Uh-huh.
Can you give us an example of how that might work in a real life situation?
If you really want to be transformed, you have to live an intentional life. This is so simple, I don't want you to miss it. Most people don't lead their life, they accept their life. And when you accept your life, you are living on things that are not worthy of your time and effort and energy. To go uphill, you have to be intentional. Nobody ever went uphill by accident. You've never read a book on accidental achievements. You have to be intentional with what you do and who you are.
All right, let's imagine someone is representing themselves in a small claims case.
Okay.
They might feel overwhelmed and uncertain about the procedures, but by consulting the relevant bench book,
Okay.
they can gain a better understanding of what to expect,
Okay.
how to present their case,
Mm-hmm.
and what the judge is obligated to do.
So they can walk into the courtroom with more confidence,
That's right.
knowing they understand the rules of the game, even if they don't have a lawyer by their side.
Exactly. Bench books can help bridge the gap
Okay.
between legal professionals and those navigating the legal system on their own.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense. But before we go any further, I have one more question about the purpose of these bench books.
Okay,
Is there an underlying philosophy behind them,
I think so.
beyond just outlining procedures?
Well, at their core, bench books are about ensuring fairness and justice.
Right.
They aim to create a level playing field
Oh, okay.
where everyone, regardless of their legal expertise or resources, can participate in the legal process with a reasonable degree of understanding and confidence.
That's a really powerful concept.
It is.
So it's not just about winning or losing a case.
Right.
It's about ensuring the system itself is working fairly
Exactly.
for everyone involved.
It's about upholding the principles of due process and equal protection under the law.
I love.
That's why the Nazis were studying mind control. What the Nazis had settled on for mind control was that a person first needed to be malnourished. The second thing was they needed to have heavy metals. Aluminum was their one choice at that time, deposited into their bodies. The third thing that they needed was to have negative stimulus, punishment if you don't do what we tell you to do. And then the fourth thing, repeat messaging. When you do those four things, what you create is a person who is now willing to suggestibility and willing to be controlled in their mind. In 1945, Alan Dulles brings 1,600 Nazi scientists into the United States. Paperclip. He clears all their records, makes sure they avoid getting involved in the Nuremberg trials. All of them certainly would have been sentenced to death. He brought them into the United States, put them in our government, and gave them unlimited funding because he loved what they were doing with mind control. These scientists brought all the Nazi science into the United States. And so now you have rollout of the Nazi agenda in the United States and then starting to go globally because everybody is taking what the United States is doing as the way of the future. Those repeated messages that the Nazis were doing, those became commercials.
Okay, so we've established that bench books
Are amazing resources,
Yes.
but they wouldn't be very useful if they were locked away in a vault somewhere, right?
Right.
How do people actually access them?
Many bench books are actually available online.
Oh, wow.
You can often find them on court websites.
Or legal databases. You can also find them in law libraries
Mhm.
or contact court administrators directly.
And having a legal professional by your side can make navigating these resources much easier.
Absolutely. A lawyer can help you understand the nuances of the bench book and how it applies to your specific situation.
This is all incredibly helpful. Now that we have a solid understanding of what bench books are
Yeah.
and why they matter,
Right.
I'm really excited to dive into some real world examples
Me too.
of how they can be used to gain an advantage in court.
Let's do it. Welcome back to our deep dive into bench books.
Back into the bench books.
As we saw in part one, these guides can be a game changer, especially if you're representing yourself.
They're like a secret decoder ring for the legal system, right?
That's a great way to put it. And today we're going to decode some specific examples of how knowing the bench book can give you an edge in court.
I'm ready to unlock some secrets.
Where should we start?
Let's stick with the U.S. District Court Judge's bench book for now. There's a fascinating section on the duty to disclose information
Favorable to defendant.
Okay, that sounds important. What kind of information are we talking about? Is this like secret evidence the prosecution is hiding?
Not exactly secret, but it's information the prosecution is legally obligated to disclose to the defense.
Okay.
It's called the Brady Rule,
Okay.
and it requires to hand over any evidence that could be favorable to the defense, even if it weakens their case.
So it's like a legal requirement for the prosecution to play fair. I had no idea that existed.
It's a cornerstone of our justice system.
Wow.
The bench book actually goes into detail about what falls under Brady,
Oh,
including evidence that could cast doubt on the credibility of government witnesses or suggest the defendant's innocence.
this is huge. So how can knowing about this
Huge.
section of the bench book help someone who's representing themselves?
Well, if you're aware of the Brady rule and the specific types of evidence covered, you can be proactive
Okay.
and make specific
Requests for disclosure from the prosecution. You don't have to just sit back and hope they hand everything over voluntarily.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You're basically using the bench book to hold the prosecution accountable
Yes.
and ensure they're playing
By the rules.
exactly.
What happens if they don't disclose this Brady material?
Failure to disclose Brady material can have serious consequences.
Okay.
It could lead to a mistrial or even a reversal of a conviction on appeal.
Wow, that's a powerful tool for the defense.
It is.
It really highlights how knowing the bench book can level the playing field.
It's all about transparency.
Yeah.
Justice is supposed to be blind, right? Brady helps ensure that blindness applies to both sides.
I love that. This deep dive is really making me see the courtroom in a whole new light.
Good.
It's like learning the secret language of the legal system.
Exactly. And speaking of secret language,
Yeah.
let's decode another section of the
Bench book that can be incredibly advantageous.
Okay.
The part about case management conferences.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of those?
Not really. What are they all about?
Essentially, they're meetings between the judge and the parties involved in a civil case.
Okay.
They usually happen early in the litigation process,
Okay.
and the bench book provides guidelines for how these conferences should be conducted.
Okay. So it's like setting the ground rules for the case.
You could say that.
Okay.
The bench book emphasizes the importance of narrowing down the issues in dispute,
Okay.
setting a clear timeline for discovery, and even exploring alternative dispute resolution options.
So it's a strategic planning session for the case.
Right, now, here's a matter of Ashley Charles Watson. Ashley Charles Watson. Ashley Charles Watson.
Is it the Mr. Ashley Charles Watson's, in all caps, fictions trust you are ministering here today?
That's the one dated the 3rd.
That's the one.
27th of January.
Did you hear that? He said that. No, I was born alive. I don't have a date of birth.
The corporeal presence here today suggests to me you are indeed Ashley Charles Watson.
What gives you that?
I'm satisfied you're there. Come to the bar table, please. If you don't want to, you'll have to conduct it.
I'm making a special appearance on behalf of the defendant, which is a corporate legal fiction. I am the corporate legal fiction's personal representative, sole authorised agent and beneficiary of the constructive trust. Case number MAG 0014426/23 in brackets 9. And now I need to know who you are. Clerk of the court, are you the Cesta KV trustee that appointed this person behind you? Trustee over the constructive case, case number MAG 0014426/23 in brackets 9.
Okay, now, are you
I'm not a sir. Please stop calling me sir.
Oh, sir,
I'm not a sir. I work for a living.
I will address you as
I do not accept that.
I appreciate you've got it on the record.
So you are recording here today? Are you recording here today, please?
I will not be answering your questions. I'm here.
If you don't answer your question, this is a two-way street.
I'm afraid it's not.
Well, if it's not a two-way street, this is not a lawful court and you have no authority. I have told you, and if you're on the record, I'm trying to be.
I run this court.
And what oath did you swear to become a lawful officer under this court? Then you have no. If you cannot establish where your authority comes from, you have no authority. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just telling you the facts. No, you're not. You're lying under oath.
How dare?
I dare. Please establish where your authority comes from. No, I will not guard my comments. I served in the military to serve the Commonwealth Constitution of Australia, for the Commonwealth people of Australia. You are a fraud. If you cannot establish where your authority comes from, please, if you don't have to, then leave the court if you don't have to.
How dare you suggest I leave the court?
Then establish where your authority comes from. What oath did you swear? What oath did you swear?
I do not have to swore an oath to the Queen.
Queen of who? Queen of Australia or Queen of the Commonwealth?
I do not have to establish anything.
Yes, you do, because I am a Commonwealth Commonwealth people, and the authority of the Commonwealth is derived from the people. So yes, you do have to establish where your authority comes from. So this is a fraudulent court committing fraud. Thank you very much. You just submitted on the record.
That seems like something everyone involved should be taking seriously.
Absolutely. And by understanding the bench book's guidance on case management conferences, you can be a more effective advocate for your own interests.
Can you give me an example of how this might play out in a real case?
Well, for instance, the bench book really stresses the importance of initial disclosures.
Okay.
These are mandatory exchanges of information between the parties early on.
Got it.
The bench book encourages judges to make sure these disclosures happen promptly.
So if you know this, you can push for timely disclosure and avoid unnecessary delays.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
It keeps the case moving forward efficiently and prevents one side from trying to stall or hide information.
That makes a lot of sense. Are there any other strategic tips hidden in the bench book's guidance on case management conferences?
Yes. It also highlights the importance of identifying and marking exhibits well in advance of the trial.
Exhibits, you mean like physical evidence or documents?
Precisely.
Okay.
By having everything organized and ready to go, you prevent last-minute scrambles and ensure a smoother, more persuasive presentation.
Yeah.
It's all about being prepared and avoiding unnecessary surprises during the trial.
These seemingly mundane procedural details are starting to feel like major power moves.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And that's why knowing the bench book can be such a game changer.
Yeah.
It helps you anticipate what the judge is looking for, navigate the process more smoothly, and ultimately
Advocate more effectively for yourself.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. We've been focusing a lot on the U.S. District Court Judges Bench Book.
Yes,
Does the Military Judges JAG Bench Book offer similar strategic advantages?
absolutely.
Okay.
For example, it provides detailed guidance on conducting voir dire, which is the fancy term for jury selection in a court-martial setting.
And just like in federal court, the bench book emphasizes the importance of consent when a magistrate judge is involved in this jury selection process, right?
That's correct. The JAG bench book makes it very clear that the accused must expressly consent to having a magistrate judge conduct the voir dire.
Okay.
If they object, the military judge has to handle it themselves.
So knowing this procedure empowers the accused to exercise their right to choose who conducts this critical part of the trial.
Precisely.
Okay.
It ensures their preferences are respected and that they have a voice in the process.
That's fantastic. Yeah. What other strategic insights can we find in the JAG bench book?
Another valuable section is the guidance on presenting sentencing evidence. It outlines what can and can't be considered during the sentencing phase,
Okay.
including things like matters in extenuation and mitigation.
Okay. I'm not familiar with those terms. Can you break those down for me?
Of course.
Thanks.
Matters in extenuation are factors that might lessen the severity of the offense.
Okay.
Think of it like explaining the circumstances that led to the crime.
Got it.
Matters in mitigation, on the other hand, are factors that might justify a more lenient sentence.
Okay.
This might include things like the defendant's good character or remorse for their actions.
So the bench book is basically helping the defense build the most compelling case possible for their client, highlighting all the factors that might lead to a more favorable outcome.
Exactly. It's about presenting a complete picture to the judge and advocating for fairness and leniency within the bounds of the law.
This is all so insightful. It's amazing how much strategic guidance is packed into these bench books, whether it's for federal court or military court.
They really are treasure troves of information, giving you a behind-the-scenes look at the rules of the game and empowering you to play strategically and advocate for yourself with confidence.
Okay, before we move on, there's one more bench book I want to make sure we touch on.
Okay.
We talked briefly about the science bench book earlier. How can that one be used to gain an advantage in court?
Yes, the science bench book.
Yes.
It's a specialized tool designed primarily for judges to help them evaluate scientific evidence.
Cool.
But just knowing it exists can be a huge advantage for anyone presenting or challenging scientific evidence in court.
I'm intrigued. How so?
Well, imagine you're presenting expert testimony.
Okay.
If you know the judge might be consulting the science bench book, you can tailor your presentation accordingly.
You mean making sure your expert is credible, their methods are sound, and their testimony aligns with the principles outlined in the science bench book?
Exactly.
Okay.
You're basically playing to the judge's expectations and increasing your chances of having your evidence accepted and given weight in the case.
It's like knowing the teacher's grading rubric before you take the test. Brilliant.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
So while the science bench book might not be something you'd read cover to cover, knowing it exists and understanding its purpose can definitely give you a strategic edge.
This has been an eye-opening exploration of how bench books can empower individuals in the legal system. It's like we've uncovered a whole toolbox of strategies and insights.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Really?
There are bench books for various specialized areas of law,
Wow.
each offering its own unique set of guidance and insights.
I can't wait to explore more. But for now, let's shift our focus to another fascinating application of bench books.
Okay.
Ensuring compliance with administrative law and protecting the rights of federal employees.
Sounds like a perfect segue into our final part. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring these bench books.
Yes.
And how they can be used to demystify the legal system
Right.
and empower individuals.
Exactly.
So far, we've focused on court proceedings, but I'm really curious about how bench books apply to other areas of law, like administrative law.
That's a great point.
There are actually specialized bench books for various administrative agencies, and they can be just as valuable as the ones used in court.
Can you give me an example?
Absolutely. There's a specific bench book for administrative judges who handle cases involving federal employees.
Okay.
We're talking about things like disciplinary actions, discrimination claims, or even whistleblowing cases.
So if a federal employee is facing some sort of action against them,
Right.
this bench book would be their go-to guide.
Exactly. It's called the Merit Systems Protection Board Bench Book.
Okay.
And it provides invaluable insights into the procedures and legal standards that govern these types of cases.
What kind of information would someone find in this bench book?
Well, one really important section covers motions for attorney fees. In certain types of employment cases, the winning party can actually be awarded attorney fees, which means the losing side has to pay their legal bills.
Wow, that could be a significant financial burden.
It absolutely can be. And the bench book outlines the specific criteria that administrative judges must consider when deciding whether to award attorney fees.
Yeah.
Knowing those criteria could be incredibly helpful for both the employee and the agency involved.
So it's another example of how bench books can help level the playing field.
Right.
Everyone involved can see the exact standards and guidelines that are supposed to be followed.
Precisely. It promotes fairness and transparency throughout the process. Another fascinating aspect of the Merit Systems Protection Board Bench Book is the guidance on enforcing board orders.
Okay, why is that so important?
Because sometimes one party, often the agency, might not fully comply with the decision made by the Merit Systems Protection Board.
So what happens in those situations? Does the employee just have to accept it?
Not at all. The bench book outlines a very specific process for filing petitions for enforcement.
Okay.
It's a legal mechanism that holds parties accountable to the board's rulings.
That's amazing. So even if an employee wins their case, they can use the bench book to make sure the agency actually follows through with what they're supposed to do.
Exactly. It gives them a clear path for seeking enforcement and even outlines potential sanctions for noncompliance. It's a powerful tool for protecting the rights of federal employees.
This is another great example of how bench books can empower individuals,
even in complex areas of law, like administrative law.
Absolutely. It's all about demystifying the system and giving people the tools they need to navigate it effectively.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
Good.
We've seen how bench books can be used in criminal court, military court, and even in administrative proceedings. It's clear that they're an invaluable resource for anyone seeking to understand and navigate the legal system, whether you're a lawyer, a judge, or just someone trying to figure out how it all works.
I completely agree. Bench books really do offer a window into the inner workings of the legal world. They provide valuable insights into procedures, legal standards, and even strategic considerations.
And while they may seem like a secret weapon for legal professionals, we've learned that anyone can use them to their advantage.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is power, especially in the legal world.
100%.
And bench books are packed with knowledge waiting to be unlocked.
That's right.
So whether you're facing a legal issue yourself or simply want to learn more about how the system works, I encourage you to explore the world of bench books. You might be surprised at what you discover.
And that's a wrap for our deep dive into bench books. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the fascinating world
You have a
of
jurisdictional
law and
argument you want to make?
justice.
Well, I served notice.
Sir,
on
it's a yes or no. Do you have a jurisdictional argument you'd like to make today?
I have a
Yes
multiple
or
arguments.
no?
Why are you forcing me to say answer?
Because I'm running the courtroom and it's the way I want to do it. Do you have a jurisdictional argument you'd like to make today?
I do, yes.
Then make it. What's your jurisdictional argument?
I'm presenting myself. So I need to know, Article 6 of the Constitution grants me the right to know What jurisdiction is this court operating up under?
State of Michigan.
No, what jurisdiction?
State of Michigan.
Okay, what jurisdiction is the state of
District
Michigan?
courts are legislative courts. That means they're created by statute. The state of Michigan gives me my jurisdiction.
So, okay, is that
I work
criminal
under the authority
or-
of the state of Michigan.
What is it, under what jurisdiction? There's two different jurisdictions under the Constitution. You have admiralty and common law. So I would need to know.
This is not admiralty.
What is
And
it?
it's not common law.
Which
It's
one?
statutory.
When do you become a man? When you get a driver's license? Like, what do we do? You're 16, we give you a driver's license. Okay, well, wait, like, you get a job? Like, when do you become a man? You become a man when you become responsible for other people. And part of that is taking accountability. I grew up in a culture that told me going to war made you a man. Going to prison, coming back makes you a man. Making $1 million makes you a man, you know, and it doesn't. You eat every day.
Don't do it! Just don't do it! Let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just don't do it! Don't make your dreams come true! Just don't do it! Some people dream success, while you're gonna wake up and let your dreams be dreams. Nothing is possible! You should get to the point where anyone else should quit, and you're gonna stop there! No, what are you waiting for? Just don't do it! Yes, you can! Let your dreams be dreams. Just don't do it! Don't do it! If you're tired of starting, just give up. Just give up.
All right, so we're diving into another stack of source docs today. This time it's bench books. And this is where the rubber meets the road, folks. This is where you can really start to understand how the legal system works and use that knowledge to your advantage.
Exactly. Bench books are like the instruction manuals for the legal system. They lay out the procedures, the rules, the guidelines, and knowing what's in these books can give you a real tactical advantage.
Think citizen versus government. You know, we the people armed with the same knowledge as the other side.
Leveling the playing field. I like it.
So we've got a whole stack of bench books here, federal, state, even military. Let's start with this one, the U.S. District Court Judges Bench Book.
Yeah, this one is a classic. It's used by federal judges all across the country.
Okay, so I'm flipping through it, and I'm immediately struck by how specific the language is in certain situations. Like, take a plea taking, for instance.
Right.
There's a precise script the judge has to follow. They ask about your age, your education, even your ability to understand English.
It might seem like a formality, but it's there to ensure that everyone understands what's happening and that their rights are protected.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to remove any doubt about whether you're knowingly and voluntarily entering a plea.
Exactly. And that's important, right? Because a guilty plea has serious consequences.
Absolutely. And it's not just pleas either. This bench book lays out the exact wording for informing you of your right to an attorney, the instructions given to a jury. I mean, it's incredible.
It's all about transparency and predictability, and that's good for everyone involved.
Boom. So that's your first tactical advantage, folks. Knowing the language of the courtroom, it can help you anticipate what's coming, reduce anxiety, and focus on building your case.
Less stress, more strategic thinking.
Now let's talk timelines and deadlines.
Yeah.
The Speedy Trial Act, everyone's heard of it,
Yeah.
but how many people actually know the specifics?
Right.
Well, this bench book breaks it all down. How much time the government has to bring a case to trial, what can cause delays.
It's all in there.
And you gotta know this stuff because time can be your ally.
Absolutely.
Rat-a-tat-tat.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. The bench book also details what are called excludable periods. These are delays that can pause the clock.
Like what?
Well, things like mental competency hearings, or if a witness is unavailable. There are all sorts of reasons why a trial might be delayed.
So the countdown isn't always as straightforward as it seems.
Nope.
And knowing these loopholes, knowing when the clock is actually ticking and when it's not, that can give you valuable breathing room to prepare your defense.
Exactly. More time to build your case, gather evidence, talk to witnesses.
Kaboom. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about magistrate judges. These are judicial officers who handle a wide range of duties, from pretrial matters to even some trials.
Great.
And we've got insights from 2 different bench books on this, actually. It's fascinating stuff. But the big question is, friend or foe?
Well, it's a bit of both, to be honest. On the one hand, magistrate judges can help streamline things, which can lead to quicker resolutions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But on the other hand, their decisions can be appealed. So knowing when and why to object to a magistrate judge referral can be crucial.
Okay, so knowledge is power here.
Absolutely. And that's what we're all about.
Boom. All right, next up, the bench book on interstate juvenile courts. I was flipping through this one. And one acronym just jumped out at me. ICJ.
Ah, yes. ICJ. Not the band.
Definitely not the band, no. This is the Interstate Compact for Juveniles. And let me tell you, this thing has some serious reach nationwide.
It's an agreement between states that basically allows them to cooperate on juvenile justice issues.
Okay, so why should anyone care about this?
Well, for one thing, it can facilitate transfers of juvenile supervision across state lines. So if a kid gets in trouble in one state and then moves to another, the ICJ can help ensure that they're still supervised.
And that's not all. It can also be used as an alternative to traditional extradition in some cases. I mean, this is some next level stuff, folks.
It is, and it's just one example of how knowing what's in these bench books can give you a real advantage. I like the sound effects. You know, it really drives home the point that we're talking about tactical knowledge here. This is about arming yourself with information that can make a difference in a legal battle.
Exactly.
All right, we're back and ready to dig even deeper into these bench books.
Yeah, we're talking about arming citizens with the knowledge they need to stand their ground in any legal situation.
It's all about empowering the people, giving them the tools to understand the system and fight back.
Exactly. We're going to expose those hidden gems, those little nuggets of info that can give you an edge in the citizen versus government battle.
And believe me, there are plenty of them to be found. We're talking about turning the tables, using the system's own rules against it.
Okay, so let's talk about leveling the playing field. And I'm not just talking about figuratively, I'm talking about literally ensuring that everyone has equal access to justice.
Right.
And this bench book, the Equal Treatment Bench Book, this is all about that, making sure that people with disabilities have a fair shot in court.
Absolutely. This bench book outlines all sorts of adjustments that can be made to ensure equal access. We're talking about everything from remote hearings for folks who can't travel
to modified courtroom procedures for people with communication challenges.
I was really impressed by the level of detail in this book. It covers everything from providing assistance with trial bundles to ensuring safe evacuation procedures for people with mobility issues.
They really
Why I'm glad to be a human? Well, because as humans, we fuck animals from time to time. We fuck horses, dogs, goats, you name it, we fucked it. And I'm not saying that I want to fuck an animal or that I would fuck an animal, but I'm proud to be part of the dominant species that do the fucking. Imagine if another animal was the dominant species, like a tiger. Imagine getting hunted by a tiger that won't even bite. It don't want to kill you. It don't want to eat you. Just fuck. Now, you might think I'm weird, but if aliens came to Earth and they asked you, hey, from time to time, do your species fuck other animals? The answer is yes. Don't feel bad about it. Just be proud that you are part of the species that fuck other animals and other animals ain't fucking you. Game is game.
really thought of everything.
Yeah, it's clear that a lot of work went into making this bench book comprehensive and really focused on making the justice system truly accessible.
And that's a beautiful thing. Knowing your rights, knowing what accommodations are available, that can make all the difference in how you approach a legal situation.
It takes away that fear of the unknown. Yeah. Okay, so now let's zoom in a little bit. We've been talking about federal bench books, but let's talk state specific for a minute. We're going to Kansas.
Kansas,
Kansas, the Sunflower State. And we're cracking open the Kansas Judicial Advisory Committee bench book. And, you know, the reason we're going to Kansas, the reason we're looking at state-specific bench books is because they can give you an even deeper understanding of the legal landscape in your particular jurisdiction.
Yeah, it's all about knowing the lay of the land, so to speak.
Exactly. So in Kansas, this bench book really shines when it comes to jury selection.
Ah, jury selection. That's a crucial part of any trial.
It really is. And this bench book, it breaks down all the different types of juror challenges. You know, challenges for cause, peremptory challenges.
And it explains how and when to use them, which is critical.
Absolutely. It's like they're giving you the playbook for picking your team. You have a team that's going to decide your fate.
That's a great analogy. I like that.
And get this, the Kansas bench book even includes visual aids to help you understand these concepts. We're talking diagrams, charts, all sorts of stuff, make it easy to digest.
They really go the extra mile.
Okay, so now we're going to a completely different battlefield. We're going to military justice. We're talking about the Military Judges JAG bench book.
Ah, yes. Military justice. A world of its own.
It really is. And even if you're not in the military, you could still find yourself involved in a military case. Maybe as a witness or even a victim.
Absolutely. It happens more often than you might think.
So understanding how military justice works, it's important. You don't want to be caught off guard.
Right.
So I've got this this JAG-GAG bench book right here. And let me tell you, it's a beast. But it's packed with all sorts of information that can help you navigate this complex system. One thing that jumped out at me was the section on pre-trial agreements.
Pre-trial agreements, so like plea bargains in the civilian world.
Sort of. But there are some key differences. And knowing those differences can be critical for anyone involved in a military case.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame.
This bench book lays it all out. The benefits, the risks, the procedures, your rights. It's all there.
They don't leave anything out.
All right, so now let's head back to Arizona. We're going to take a look at the Arizona Limited Jurisdiction Bench Book.
Limited jurisdiction, what's that all about?
Well, it basically means that these courts have a specific limited scope of authority. They handle things like traffic tickets, misdemeanors, small claims cases.
Okay, so like the lower courts.
Exactly, but don't let that fool you. These courts, they handle a ton of cases that impact everyday citizens.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So this bench book, it's like a guide to navigating these courts. It covers everything from the initial appearance to sentencing.
So it's like a mini version of the federal bench book we were looking at earlier.
Kind of,
Mm-hmm.
but it's tailored specifically to the procedures and rules of these limited jurisdiction courts.
Makes sense.
One section that I found particularly helpful was the one on probation violation hearings. It outlines the steps involved, the rights of the defendant, the potential consequences. It's all right there.
So it's like a roadmap for anyone who's on probation.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's move on to something that can be a bit intimidating for a lot of people, especially federal employees. We're talking about the Merit Systems Protection Board, the MSPB.
The MSPB, that's the big one for federal employees, right?
It is. It's their shield against unfair treatment in the workplace.
So this is all about protecting federal employees from things like wrongful termination, discrimination, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And the bench book for judges on merit systems protection, that's the guide to understanding how it all works.
So this bench book tells you everything you need to know about filing a complaint with the MSPB.
It does. It outlines the types of appeals that can be filed, the procedures, the standards of review.
I'm looking at it now, and there's even a section on how to file a petition for enforcement if an agency doesn't comply with a board order.
So it's about holding the government accountable.
Exactly. And it's about giving federal employees a voice. You know, they often feel powerless against this huge bureaucracy.
Right.
But the MSPB and this bench book, they give them a way to fight back.
And that's powerful. Okay, last but not least, we got to talk about the federal magistrate judges system.
Magistrate judges, they seem to be everywhere these days.
They are. Their role in the federal system has been expanding. They handle all sorts of things now, from issuing warrants to conducting hearings.
So understanding their powers, understanding how they operate, that's critical.
Absolutely. And the bench book on the federal magistrate judges system, that's your guide to doing just that.
Okay, I'm looking at it now. It outlines all the different situations where you might interact with a magistrate judge.
Right. And it explains their authority, their decision-making process, and the steps you can take to appeal their decisions if necessary.
So it's about knowing your rights and knowing how to protect yourself.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about, right? Empowering citizens with knowledge, giving them the tools they need to navigate the legal system and fight for what's right.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Federal courts, state courts, military justice, even specialized areas like the MSPB.
Mhm.
We've really gone deep.
Yeah, we've given folks a lot to think about, a lot of tools to add to their legal arsenal.
Absolutely. But, you know, before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to the military judge's JAG bench book for a second.
Okay, what caught your eye this time?
Well, there's a whole section in here on the oath of enlistment. And it really struck me how much emphasis they put on it.
Yeah, that oath is a big deal in the military. It's the foundation of everything.
It's a solemn promise, a commitment to defend the Constitution and obey orders. And this bench book, it really drives home the weight of that oath, the responsibilities it entails, the consequences of breaking it.
It sets the stage for everything that follows.
Exactly.
Clear
It's a
throat.
reminder that military justice operates within a very specific framework. And understanding that framework is crucial for anyone who finds themselves involved in a military case.
Right.
Yes. Emphasis on the following.
It's a different world with different rules.
There's also a section on non-judicial punishment, which is basically a way for commanders to address minor offenses without having to go through a full-blown court-martial.
So it's like an internal disciplinary system.
Exactly. But it's important to know that service members still have rights during this process.
Of course.
And this bench book, it outlines those rights. It explains the procedures for non-judicial punishment, the limits on the punishments that can be imposed. It's all there.
They really try to cover all the bases.
Okay, let's shift gears one last time. Back to the Arizona Limited Jurisdiction bench book.
All right, back to Arizona.
One thing that really stood out to me in this one was the section on orders of protection.
Orders of protection. So we're talking about domestic violence cases.
Yeah, these orders are often used to protect victims from further abuse or harassment. And this bench book, it lays out exactly how to get one. The steps involve, the evidence you need, the potential outcome.
It's a roadmap for anyone who's dealing with the domestic violence situation.
Exactly. And knowing about these orders, knowing how they work, that can be a lifeline for someone who's in a dangerous situation.
It gives them a way to take control, to protect themselves.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to the whole point of this deep dive, empowering citizens with knowledge.
Right. Knowledge is power.
In the legal arena, that power can be the difference between winning and losing.
Between feeling helpless and feeling like you can actually fight back.
We've looked at bench books covering all sorts of topics, but from federal court procedures to state-specific nuances, military justice, even things like the MSPB.
And the takeaway is clear. These books, they're gold mines of information.
They really are.
Yeah.
And they're out there for anyone to access. So we urge you, don't be intimidated by the legal system. Don't let it overwhelm you.
Take what we've learned today and run with it.
Find the bench books that are relevant to your situation. Dig in and arm yourself with knowledge.
Or best defense, your best offense.
It's the key to leveling the playing field.
And to ultimately winning the fight for justice.
All right. So, I guess, in summary, in summation, the way that one properly finds this source material is to understand how to use command prompts, search engine or search operators. In this case, it would be file type, all one word, FILETYPE : PDF, DOC, DOCX. Any of those are file extensions that you'll be able to find. This information is out there. It's not hard to find. Educate yourself. Do something. You know what I mean? This is a fight. We're in a battle. We're losing it. Don't act like you're not responsible. An assault on his rights, an assault on your rights. It's an assault on my rights, and that I cannot, will not abide. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor being Bleak Narratives tonight, and tomorrow I will be history. Go your good way, brothers and sisters. Cheers.